forgot that. Oh, hey, it's Dr. Dare. I'm all into my phone. It's Dr. Dare live on Facebook and YouTube. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Um, Tonight's show, we're just talking. We're just chatting. What are y'all up to on this Friday night? It's raining here in the A. And I just wanted to come on and talk. I forgot to post all week that I was going to have the show today. So I'm just on chit chatting. Who comes on, comes on. Who doesn't, who doesn't. But just wanted to talk about a few things that are going on in the world today. But of course, I'm a little early. Hey, Karen. And so I'm not sure if anybody will join, but we got one person already, and I'm a little early because it's 8:24. But I just wanted to jump on and kind of share what's going on this week. Um, Again, nothing planned for this show tonight. I was just looking at a video that I did on TikTok today, and it was about losing a parent. And I know one of my friends on here who's been a guest on here just lost her dad. And so I did a video kind of talking about losing a parent and how it makes you feel like you're like a little kid all over again, kind of lost, and you feel abandoned and you feel like you're in the world alone by yourself. And so I had placed that video before I went to teach class tonight at I guess like 4:45 or something like that, almost 5 o'clock, and it already has almost 1,500 views already and shares. So a lot of people are hurting with grief and loss, and I see it all day, every day, on like social media where people are saying that they've lost someone. And so I posted that video earlier today. Go check it out. It's really it feels like it's going viral because there's a lot of likes and things like that. But just wanted to get in and see what you guys were doing on this Friday night. I'm going to log onto my phone because I know sometimes I can't see the comments from Facebook. So let me go log in. But welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me know how your week has been. Like I said, I just got on just to talk, no real topic or anything to discuss. Just came in to say hi to y'all. Um, so yeah, like I was saying, I posted this video at like 4:45 and it already has like 1,500 views on it. And I just placed it to social to Facebook. So that was on TikTok. Let's see. Let me see if I'm live. And I am. There we go. I found my live, so let me just turn her down so that I can't really hear. But welcome, welcome, welcome to the Dr. Dare Show tonight. I don't see anybody on there, so we'll just chit chat. Couple of things I wanted to talk about. TikTok and the ban that they're saying that they're banning TikTok. How do y'all feel about that? Like for me, and I know some of my fellow content creators, we do a lot on TikTok. That's where my audience is. My audience, I mean, I have a good audience on Facebook and Instagram. They're not as good, but TikTok is where my audience is. And like I have 13,000 people on TikTok. And I see some of them filtering over into Facebook. But if they ban TikTok, how does that impact you guys out there? Do y'all even care if they ban TikTok? And so welcome, welcome, welcome to the Dr. Dare Show. We just checking in to see what y'all are going on Friday. Does anybody have any business ideas that they want to share or talk about? I wanted to share that I did go to an event with Pinky Cole. Anybody who lives in Atlanta knows Slutty Vegan. It's a vegan restaurant that's very, very popular, and she's building them all over in different states. It's a vegan restaurant. It's very good. It's very popular, and it's called Slutty Vegan. And so I went to an event she had, and she was there. Her husband was there. the pastor John, I lost his name, the one that was cheating and all that stuff. So he was there, and some other celebrities, but very, very insightful. And they were sharing business ideas. So I thought, hey, y'all could come on the show and talk about your business ideas. There are idea you have that you want to start and you feel a little afraid, or you already have a business and you kind of want to talk about it. Let me know. Thank you, Karen. John Gray. Yeah, John Gray. So I went to a Pinky Cole event. It's been about 3 weeks ago now, and you were able to, hey, DeWardis, pop, pop, pop. Yeah, so you were able to come on there. Please elaborate on the pastor that was cheating. I have not heard on this. Angela Puff. Yeah, Pastor John Gray. It's old news probably. You probably have to Google it, but yeah, he's a pastor. He's still the pastor of a big church. Well, anyway, he cheated several times on his wife, and him and his wife was at this event that I attended, and his wife was basically saying like she stuck with her husband because she understood that he was going through something other than the cheating thing. Because what people don't realize, a lot of people cheat because several reasons. They cheat due to they could have had sexual trauma. Anything could have happened in their past, but sometimes it's not just they could have a sexual addiction or something like that. Sometimes it's not just them cheating just because they want to cheat or they don't know how to control their sexual desires, which can be possible, but a lot of it is sometimes people have sexual trauma or the way they were raised. And she was saying she stuck with her husband because she knew that he was struggling with something else. And this was just basically a byproduct of that struggle. And one thing that I took away from that event was that they asked the Black men to stand up in the audience and asked how many Black men had thought about killing themselves. And it was like almost everyone in the audience that a Black male stood up. And that was scary to me as a therapist. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people struggling in silence. And I did a video the other day just saying how people are sitting at home. They're going through a lot of stuff and they're struggling secretly and crying at home. And they don't really have anybody to talk to. What's up, DeWardis? Angela Puff says, sounds like a very understanding and caring wife. Mad respect for her. Thank you for explaining what happened. No problem. But Angel Puff, take a look at it. It happened a few years ago. But yeah, she stuck by him because he had been struggling with something they didn't really say. But then, like I said, the audience stood up and half the Black men in there tried to said they thought about killing themselves or thought about committing suicide. So if that's anybody out here who has these thoughts or is struggling with anything, please seek a therapist or talk to somebody. You know, you don't have to struggle alone. And I know it's hard to find people to talk to keep a secret, to be confidential. And that's why it's good to see a therapist because, you know, everything has to be confidential there because that's a part of your licensing guidelines. And then if you actually, you know, tell somebody's business, you're going to lose your license. You'll mess up your own career. So, yeah. So anybody have anything they wanted to discuss? Like I said, I just jumped on. This is my usual night to do a show. I hadn't planned anything. I was busy all week. But let's talk about dating. Why is it that what I'm seeing in the dating pool is that there is a lot of couples that are cheating. And so then the single people don't have anybody to date because the married people and the couples are on the dating app trying to hook up with other people. So tell me what that's about. Is it because the dating dynamics have changed now that there's more open relationships or whatever? Because I hear a lot of people complaining, like single people. This one guy just posted on his page. He was like, the single people aren't the hoes anymore. It's the married people that are out here trying to pick up the single people. So what do y'all think about that thought? Okay, and agreed. Therapy has much more of a positive impact than people think. Yes, it's a place where you can discover if your past has impacted your current life, which a lot of people are struggling with past trauma, and it does impact their current life. Um, Karen says dating is trash these days. Yeah, and I've seen it like on and I think it has something to do with just like open relationships. Like, um, he's really good. And Andrea, hey cousin, you said Recondius O'Brien Lynch. He's really good. Is he a therapist, cousin? But yeah, so there's a lot of what they say. There's pee in the dating pool. So yeah. Yeah, so does anybody having like any business ideas they want to throw out here at me? Um, Anything like that? Hey, brother, is that my brother on here? What's up, Danny? Angel Puff says it's extremely messed up, but I try to be best to understand why people may cheat. I try to understand the trauma that you mentioned. Sometimes it's impacting others too, so therapy can be beneficial. Yes. Um, Yes, a lot of people. So I do. I've been reading this book, and it's treating people with sexual trauma, right? And so the thing that I found that happens is either somebody who's had past sexual trauma, either they're hypersexual, like they're having sex with everybody. There's no boundaries on the relationships. There's no. They just they go that extreme, or then they go the other extreme where they're not having sex at all, and they have cognitive dissonance where they disconnect from themselves when with their mate because they're that past sexual trauma makes them look at sex in a different way or different manner. Uh, Andrea says he's a pastor that follows the teachings that you are talking about. Okay. And so many people are going through so much. I really appreciate you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. And they are like I posted a video. Um, I posted two videos. Like one was, and I'm gonna turn it down. One is was titled Five Signs That Some People Are Going Through So Much in Their Life That They're Crying in Silence. And that basically went like viral in a few hours on TikTok. And then because a lot of people are struggling in silence and they're suffering. And then the other one that I just did today, 5 reasons why as an adult you lose a parent, you feel like you're a lost child. And so that one, like it's already at 15K, and I just posted it, and it's because a lot of people are struggling either with grief or they're struggling with just personal stuff in their lives because things are hard. I don't know about you guys, but after COVID, it just seems like the world is like a different place. It's like I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm on autopilot when I'm just going through the task because I don't know what COVID did, but it just seems like it just changed things and made things just seem so different, weird. I don't know. Anybody have thoughts on that? Karen says dating has had so much dating now had so much communication barriers. I'm finding that when a mutual attraction occurs, the communication styles have to be understood. A texter finds it hard to talk on the phone. That's a good point, Karen, because some people like to text. Some people don't like text. They like actual. I got you, Karen. They like the face to face old school communication, right? And so that is a barrier and I have to admit, I'll text. And I think I got that from my dad. I prefer a text until we plan to meet and then we go out and talk. And then after that, I'll cease with the texting and be more face to face, you know? But I can see that being a barrier on communication. Ooh, that video is steady climbing. Yes. So yeah, it's just so much stuff going on in the world. Then we got the presidency. We got Donald Trump on one side, and Lord, I just forgot our president's name. Help me out, y'all. Joe Biden. Oh, yeah. So we got these two going at it again, and it's just, I don't know, just so much. So yeah, dating is really, you know, what are some of the things that you guys are struggling with out there? I wrote down some things like your video on struggling in silence. It's eye opening. Thank you. And I was just looking at that, Karen. It's like so many people are actually struggling in silence, and I feel like it's just been since like COVID. I don't think anybody has actually got back on track with things because things change so much. I think we were kind of locked down for like 2 or 3 years, and then trying to get back and adjust to the life you had before seems like a struggle because it seems like, I know in my lifetime I had never experienced anything like COVID. So it was just kind of like I was in the twilight zone almost when COVID and stuff was happening, and it just feels like the world hasn't really gotten back on track after that, in my opinion. So yeah, and then every time I get on the phone, uh, I always see this bad news. Like, oh, so I highlighted a few things that I was like, oh, I got to bring this up on the show. Again, if you're just joining, welcome to the Dr. Dare Show. We're just chatting about anything and everything. If you have a topic or you want to bring up something, you can bring it up. What do y'all got going on this Friday night? I'm in the house. I just finished teaching class and came back home to just relax. I was didn't really plan anything for the show, but it's going pretty good actually. So let's see. So we were talking about the dating pool, but this is one. Oh yeah, this is a topic. So this teacher, right? She, I guess she was trying to supplement her teaching salary, and so she said she made $1 million on the OnlyFans platform, and so which she was using to supplement her teaching. Do y'all think that's an issue? I think she got fired. Yeah, a teacher who resigned she resigned after her OnlyFans page was discovered. Says new employee fire her for violation. Do you think she should be fired? Hey, Aaron Sims. Aaron says, so hard to get back to normal. I don't think it will ever be like it was prior to the pandemic. What was the name of the book again? Which book, Aaron? Did I say a book? My memory is horrible. Ask me again, Aaron. But yeah, it just seems like after the pandemic, like I feel, and Aaron says the same thing. I feel like I didn't. Um, it's a struggle to get back to the way things were. And so, how are y'all coping with that? Because what I've started doing, like I never was a movie person, like going to the theaters and things like that. And now I go all of the time. I feel like that's one of the activities that I replaced in my new version of myself. Sexual trauma. Got it. Hold on, I'm gonna run and go get it. It's in my office. So this is the book. It's called The Sexual Healing Journey: A Guide for Survivors of Sexual Abuse. Wendy Maltz. And the reason I brought this up, Aaron, I don't know if you were on earlier, but we were talking about Pastor John Gray. He's the pastor. You have to Google his name. He's the pastor that kept cheating. And he was at an event, and the author is Wendy Mez. I'll keep that up there so you can see it. But he was at a slutty vegan event that I went to, and his wife was kind of explaining why she stuck by his side, even though he was like a pathological cheater. And she was like, he went through so much growing up as a child. And she's like, she knew he was struggling, and it had nothing to do with the sexual piece. So she hung in there, and she was kind of explaining why she hung in there. But the thing that hit me hard in there is that they asked the question to all the Black men that was in the audience, like, how many of y'all have tried to commit suicide? And half the room stood up. And it's like, wow. So me being a therapist, I'm like, I want to help change that perspective, because I think Black men, we feel like we can't show emotion. We've been taught by society that we can't show emotion, and so we hold a lot of stuff in and try to handle a lot of stuff and be the man and be strong all the time. And then where do we go to get help? It's like, it's really hard. So Karen says, since COVID, I'm off track. I have been working on finding my voice again, or identifying what the new version of myself is, and getting comfortable with the newer me. Yes, Karen, it's hard. It's a hard adjustment after COVID. It just seems like, and I think Aaron said that too, it just seems like nothing ever is going to go back to the same. And I always tell my clients, when you're in that situation, you got to stop trying to find that old version of you, or stop trying to be that old version of yourself, because you probably won't be able to get that back. So my thing is, you got to start new activities, new traditions, new things like that, so that you can kind of get yourself out of that cycle, because you may not get back to, the way things were pre-COVID. I have clients who've lost like 10 family members, 8 family members. And how do you go back to normal? How do you go back to normal after losing all of that loss? Even us in the society, after losing all of those people to COVID, and just seeing how, when people don't agree in society, how it changes their personality. So people you thought you can trust, people you thought were your friends of different races and all of that stuff, you saw all of that stuff change. And it's like, wow. And you keep that in your mind, because you're like, well, I don't know if I can trust you, because I saw how you changed during the time of crisis and trauma during COVID. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. I remember all of that stuff. And people were scared, because I'm like, well, I'm going to wear a mask to protect myself. And then you got this other person over here, well, I'm not wearing a mask. I don't believe it. I believe it's fake. All of that stuff. So Aaron says, I feel that's so important to be able to acknowledge that. Yes. It is. And I think you're talking about, Aaron, I think you're talking about all the Black men that stood up and said they thought about committing suicide. I was just like shocked. And I'm thinking of starting a men's group. I think I'm going to do it virtual or in person at my office, just starting a support group, just to sit and talk about things like that, to sit where men can be comfortable just talking about their struggles and the things that they're going through. So nobody's sitting there holding all of this stuff in and, dealing with that. It's hard. Yeah. So if you missed this book title here, it's The Sexual Healing Journey. It's a cheap book, because I bought it years ago. But as you can see, I've been using it. I use it in therapy sessions and all, because it has great information. It talks about how people who've had sexual trauma react to sex. They view sex differently. They may be hypersexual, sleeping all over the world. We're calling them hoes, calling them bad names. But there's something behind that behavior. And I'm not saying everybody has something behind that behavior, but you that's why therapy is so important. So you can find out, why can't I keep my thing in my pants? Or why do I feel like I got to have sex all the time? Or the people who go to the other spectrum, or, not having sex at all, afraid to engage in sex, and afraid to all of that stuff. There's something behind that behavior. So if you want to check out this book, it's a very good book. So there we go. A men's group, yeah, Aaron. I'll keep social media updated on that because that's been on my mind. Doing something different, giving men the opportunity to come in and sit and just share what they want to share and talk about the things that they want to talk about. Karen says, my biggest struggle is speaking up. And Karen, you got to learn to advocate for yourself. Like, that's one thing I teach people. Like, if you never speak up, your voice is not going to be heard. And I think you mentioned that in one of the other statements. But you deserve to have your voice heard. You deserve to speak up and be heard. Because if you don't, guess what? You're not going to be your authentic self. You're going to get lost in the crowd. You're going to get lost in everything because nobody's hearing you. You know, my goal for me in my life and where I'm at right now is just protect my peace at all costs. And so that means speaking up. That means setting boundaries for yourself, setting boundaries for the people around you, and making sure that, you know, you're not taking on everybody's trauma. You're not taking on everybody. Because what people don't realize is when you're constantly sitting there listening to everybody dump their problems and that stuff on you, and you're not a trained therapist like me, and you don't know how to process that stuff and not take it home with you, there's something called vicarious trauma where you're listening to other people's issues. And if you're not a trained therapist, you're taking that stuff in, and sometimes their trauma then becomes your trauma, or it impacts you in a physical way. And so you really have to be careful of just sitting there and letting people just pour out all of their stuff to you when you're not trained, because that is a way to let somebody else's problems be your problems. And Karen says, I used to speak up with no problems. I'm working on it. On the other hand, I'm hyper vigilant about setting boundaries. And boundaries are good. Boundaries are the only way that you will get what you need from relationships. And so, good stuff. So back to this relationship thing. How many people think that it's because there's open relationships, that's why there's so many couples on these dating apps trying to pick up the single people, when the single people are trying to just find that one person? Explain. And no judgment to an open relationship. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I have no issues with it. But I'm struggling with, once you got a single person on a dating app and they can't even talk to anybody because all the married people are trying to talk to them. Aaron says, you can say that again. Protect peace at all costs. I've learned to create boundaries so I don't take on other people's problems. Yes. And the thing with that, Aaron, and some people don't know what boundaries are. And boundaries for me is anything that causes you distress or causes you to be upset. That means somebody's crossed your boundaries with the thing that they did. And so you have to speak up about it. You have to identify your boundaries. Like, for instance, in a relationship, your boundary could be that you need to have a day or days in the week that are just for you and not be with your partner 24/7. That's okay to say, but you have to communicate those boundaries, because the biggest things that I see when I do couples counseling, the big three things that I see, and I say this all the time on the show, that I see in relationship issues is trust issues, then people crossing boundaries, and that just left me communication. So communication, trust, and boundaries are the big three things that will interrupt a relationship. Aaron says, I agree. Dating apps full of people with open relationships. Yes. So how are the single people supposed to get a date when all the married people, or the hola Jeremiah, what's going on? I got to plan my California trip this summer, I promise. So all the married people are out there trying to pick up the single people. So then the single people can't meet anybody because they got all the relationship people on the apps. And so I was just saying earlier, if you just joined, one guy posted on his social media page, he's like, the single people aren't the whores anymore. It's the married people, because they're the they're the ones out there trying to pick up everybody. So anyway, yes. And so I'm going to go back to, because I see a lot more people join. We've been just talking about various topics. If you have something you want to talk about, just bring it up, talk about it. Like I said, I hadn't planned anything for tonight's show, but I'm glad I didn't, because I like this open forum. Aaron says, I've had to loosen the reins and cut ties with people who don't understand that everyone has to grow. And when growth occurs, accept my growth. In that, I don't want to hear all of your problems. What's up, Virginia Born? Aaron, that's a good point. I'm gonna read it again. You said, hope that made sense. My key's getting stuck. No, I got you. I'm gonna reread it. I've had to loosen the reins and cut ties with people who don't understand that everyone has to grow. Yes, because we all should be growing. We all should be working on trying to establish or do things that we've set out for ourselves. That means goals or anything like that. And sometimes we stay in these friend groups. I'm telling you, and I fully understand what you're saying, Aaron. Sometimes we'll stay in these friend groups and they're not growing. And then when you start to try to grow, there's a problem. And then those boundaries are, they become problematic. And then they're saying you're acting funny, or you think you're better than we are. But we all should be growing. We should not be still in the same space, the mindset, all of those things that we were 10 years ago. Life is constantly changing. And sometimes that means losing friends. There's a theory that says as we start getting older, we start losing friends, because things change. Your mind changes. The things that are important to you start to change. So all of those things that we used to do years ago, we may not do those things. I used to like going out to certain places. Now I'm bored with that, and that lets me know that, hey, I've outgrown that old space that I used to go to. That means that now I have to find what it is that I'm supposed to be doing next. So Aaron, thank you for sharing that, and I get it. And a lot of that comes in putting boundaries on even your friends, right? Yes. And so we were kind of talking, if you just joined, we were talking about how COVID has changed things, and it's almost like a struggle to get back to where you were pre-COVID. But the thing is, you don't have to. You can create a new version of yourself. Start doing things that you never thought you would ever do, and start doing those things again. Jeremiah says, I agree. It's a hassle to go out now. It is. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, I had to find things. That's why I go to the movies all the time. That's something I didn't do before pre-COVID. You couldn't find me in the movies. I would fall asleep. But then something came to me, and I purchased this little monthly fee for the movies, and I started going to the movies, and it just gives me something to do. Jeremiah says it's a hassle to go out. And then Tanil, hey Tanil, I definitely had to shift my friend group. It's much smaller. Yes. So Eric Erickson, if y'all are interested in that, I think he's the one that talked about how we start getting older. We start losing friends, and we start to focus on maybe giving back more and doing things like that kind of put, your goal is to give back and not just be with the same people, because friend groups will keep you stuck, because they'll keep you in your comfort zone. That's one thing. And I did a video on this about a month ago now. That comfort zone, we need to get out of it. It's when you stay in your comfort zone, you're not growing, basically. That makes sense. And so there's more people on here. I wanted to share the story that I talked about earlier about Black men, and how I was at an event with Pinky Cole, who is the owner of Slutty Vegan restaurants in Atlanta, and they're being put everywhere. So eventually you'll know what that is. But we were in there with John Gray, who is the pastor who cheated on his wife and all of that stuff. And we were talking about, she was telling us why she stayed with her husband, John Gray, even though he was, kind of like a habitual cheater. And she said she knew her husband was struggling with a whole lot of past trauma from growing up and all of that stuff. And she knew that it had nothing to do with sex. But the thing that I took away from this event, this networking event, is that Pinky asked, or somebody asked, how many Black men in here thought about committing suicide? And half the room stood up. Half the Black men stood up. And I was like, that's sad for me. So if you're just joining, I'm just repeating this story for you. And I was just shocked. I was like, we have got to find a space where Black men or men in general can sit and share their feelings and not feel like they have to hold this all in, because we don't need people killing themselves because they can't communicate what they're struggling with, because our society, especially in our Black community, we feel like Black men can't express their emotions. Yeah, Tennille, almost the whole, I'm looking around like, oh my God, half the audience stood up. And that's when John Gray, the pastor, big pastor, you can look him up, he stood up and was just like, this is crazy. And then his wife got emotional and she was like, that's why I stuck with my husband during all of these cheating situations, because she knew it was more than just him cheating. And that's when I brought up this book right here. And Aaron, thank you for bringing that up for me to bring it out. So if you're a therapist and you're working with people who are struggling with sexual trauma, or you just want to know more about sexual trauma, this book is really good. It's called The Sexual Healing Journey, a guide for survivors of sexual abuse. It's Wendy Maltz, but very good book. It shows you, as you can see, I use it a lot, but it just shows you how people who've had sexual trauma, sometimes they hyper focus on sex. They're having sex all the time, and we're calling them names and thinking they're bad people, but they got so much more going on. And this is not everybody, I want to generalize. Or they go to the other end of the spectrum where they're not having sex at all, and sex is not something, and then their relationships are ruined because they're not having sex with their married partner or partners in general. And so that's one thing we were talking about. And then the other thing was relationships. So any questions out there? It's very good discussion. We've been going for a while. And Karen says, I don't do dating apps, but I have met some nice dudes who all of a sudden pull a disappearing act after 2 to 3 days. Boom, they have been blocked. I wonder what that is, Karen. I wonder, we call it ghosting in relationships now, where you meet somebody and then all of a sudden they just disappear. There's no communication. There's no anything. So I wonder what that's about. And so, Karen, I'll read your statement again. I don't do dating apps, but I have met some nice dudes who all of a sudden pull a disappearing act after 2 to 3 days. And then, boom, you have been blocked. Wow. Jeremiah says, do you think when people heal their inner child, it will help them control the desire to find sexual satisfaction and solicitation? I truly believe that, Jeremiah, because I think a lot of people equate sex with love. And so I think, like you were saying, the inner child is searching for love. And so sometimes they just hook up with different people thinking that that's going to satisfy what that inner child needs. And it's not. Sex for some people is just a physical act. There's no connections to it. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, that statement. And so I think when you start digging deep and trying to understand why you're struggling sexually and why you feel like you got to sleep with everybody and not keep that thing in your pants and or be dedicated to your partner, there's something there. If you can't control it, it could be a sexual addiction or it could be some kind of past trauma. But again, they need to go to a therapist or somebody to explore like what the root cause is. But that's a great point, Jeremiah. And that's what John Gray's wife was like. There is something with her husband's inner child that just needs help and needed help, which is why she said she stayed and worked through things. So, yeah, it's a lot. But that's a great question, Jeremiah. So, hey, Earlene, Selena, thank you for joining. I don't know if you saw the video today. Sorry about the passing of your dad, but I did a video for you today, talking about grief and the loss of a parent and how you feel like a little child again when your parent dies. And I put that video out like 4:45, and it is already at like 1,500 views. Like it went viral, and it's got like 52. So it's on TikTok, but I just placed it on um, Facebook as well. And then I did a video yesterday about people crying and suffering in silence. And that one went viral. And it's just like so many people are struggling in silence because they can't express what they're going through. And we were talking about pre-COVID, like life hasn't went back to that same thing. So anyway, I'm not going to keep you guys too much longer. Great show. Thank y'all for joining. Really good conversation. Share this video. We talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about sexual trauma. And if you can, this book is really cheap, but it's really good. It's about probably like $3 or $4 because it's old, but I use it in therapy sessions a lot because it does help you, especially if you're dealing with somebody that's, you feel like they have a sexual addiction or something and you can't understand it. This book like this is really, 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 really good. So if you replay this video, you see I've showed it several times, but good. It's a trust factor. Yes, you do. And that's what I was saying in relationships. The biggest 3 things that I see that break up relationships is trust. If that's what you're talking about, Arlene, correct me. Trust, communication, and boundaries crossed. Those are the 3 things that usually break up relationships. But thank you guys for joining. Like I said, I had nothing planned, but we had great discussions. Go back and replay. Share this on your page. A lot of good information. And I will talk to you guys in 2 weeks. Have a good rest of your Friday evening.